Coming up, the Man Show this Friday and Saturday at the Ozark Empire Fairgrounds E-Plex. You can win tickets. There's a cost. I don't know what the entry fee is, but you can have a chance to win tickets by going to ksgf.com. Also, KSGF is going to be out there. Sarah and I will be out there for a bit on Saturday. But even while we aren't actively out there, in that center area will be the KSGF tent and somebody manning it. And I think some of our other stations will have registrations. We are going to have, registration, 417 Travel. Those are the folks that arranged our last great escape. They are doing a giveaway 3 nights, 4 days for 2 adults at the Dreams Tulum all-inclusive resort. It is at the southern end of the Riviera Maya. Transportation in that is something that you'll cover. It's not included, but the all-inclusive resort itself is. And if you do win, then you'll make all the arrangements with them. And I'm sure that if you want to upgrade and pay the difference, they'll work with you on that as well. So that registration will be there at our tent in the central area of the E-Plex for the Man Show. And again, you can get registered to win tickets for that at ksgf.com. Also, while you're over there, go ahead and sign up for Lunch Bunch Retro Metro. It's Wednesday. Favorite day of the week. That's when we do have our lunch bunch. You get yourself signed up, and if you win, then you and 5 of your friends, coworkers, family members, people of your choosing will join Sarah and me for lunch at Retro Metro on a Wednesday. We're going to be chatting with some of the Springfield school board candidates coming up in the 7 a.m. hour. If you miss any of it, don't worry. You think to yourself, I'm not going to be able to listen, or I can only listen to 2 or to, just 10 minutes or 20 minutes or so. I'm not going to be able to listen for the duration of that hour. Don't worry. We will have the on-demand section up so you can listen to it at your convenience. I will tell you of the 4 candidates, the 2 establishment candidates wouldn't even respond to numerous requests for those interviews. And so we have 2 candidates that you shall hear from in the 7 o'clock hour. Some of the latest developments also a little bit later in the show regarding the shooting. It's in Nashville at the church and / school. I don't know that I have ever seen, I know off the top of my head, I can't recall, a shooting take place in which the category of people that were the victims are openly mocked and blamed. The number of people in the media, and there's a town hall story about Claire McCaskill mocking Christians and their prayers, and can you think of any instance when that occurred? If there was a shooting of a gay nightclub, even if it wasn't targeted for that purpose, can you think of an instance in which you had the mocking of those individuals and the blaming of them for being shot because they don't do enough to prevent it from happening? I cannot think of any instance. If there's ever any doubt in this country that there, whether or not there is an anti-Christian sentiment, at least amongst the left in this country, I think that has been settled when you listen to how the left react at those victims because they're Christian. You even have one activist group on the left that says, well, this is what happens. I mean, we don't agree with shooting all these people up, but this is what happens whenever you support legislation that protects girls from boys competing in sports and using the locker rooms. And all this is just how it is. I think that it would be quite instructive for all of us to reflect on why is that? Why is it that people on the left feel perfectly comfortable mocking the very people who lost their lives in this shooting, blaming them. I mean, clearly these Christian right-wingers are supporters of the Second Amendment, and, well, this is just what happens. I guess you weren't praying enough. There are some left-wingers out there actually sarcastically tweeting out that message. I guess they weren't praying enough in that church, were they? Ha, ha, ha. Can you think of outside of Christians in this scenario being the victims and the mockery that people on the left are openly, almost gleefully participating in? Any other time that has happened with any other group or category of people in this country? I can't. Overshadowed by that news was the Senate Judiciary Committee questioning Department of Homeland Security head Alejandro Mayorkas, who, of course, among other things, I mean, where to start with this guy? I tell you, it may seem like no big deal, but one of the things about this guy that it is so frustrating, to say the least, that he is still in that position is that he, remember the horsewhipping thing? You had the Border Patrol agent who was falsely accused of whipping Haitian illegals trying to cross into our border. And Mayorkas got out there on national television condemning the action, and we would learn through emails that before that he knew that that's not what happened. He knew that's what not happened. That didn't happen. He was having email communications into the investigation that was not what happened, yet he still went on national television and falsely accused that Border Patrol agent of doing that. The fact that that guy is still in that position, he was questioned on a number of fronts, largely about illegal immigration, but Senator Kennedy had questions about whether or not he felt assault weapons should be banned. And it is just such a telling exchange about the left. Here's something that I know many of you realize, but it really is illustrated in the exchange. I'm going to play the audio coming up. The left, as you know, they like to define and redefine things. Right now, gender's a big one. Climate change is another one. See, the brilliance of their tactic is they can apply it to anything they want. And assault weapons is a great example of this. We need to ban assault weapons. Well, what is an assault weapon? Well, see, they don't actually ever define it because it gets to mean whatever they want it to mean at any given moment. Female gets to mean whatever they want it to mean at any given moment. Climate change gets to mean whatever they want it to mean at any moment. Book banning gets to mean whatever they want it to mean at any given moment. They rely on the ignorance of a segment of the population co-opted by the media in order to essentially dictate to all of us the meaning of everything, which means that they can make any of us criminals at any time they want. Jason Rima, he's got our latest news update. First alert forecast, sunny 60 for a high today, mostly clear 42 tonight, partly sunny 66 tomorrow, with showers and storms Friday, and a high of 72. The Senate Judiciary Committee had Department of Homeland Security head Alejandro Mayorkas testifying yesterday, and other than illustrating to the American people the obvious that this administration has no interest whatsoever in discussing reality and the truth, it doesn't serve much purpose. Ideally, these hearings would be to gather information. Hey, we want to know what's going on here as members of Congress. What's the situation with the border? And whomever's in charge would be like, hey, here's what's going on. We're having some troubles here. Here's some of the successes that we're having. Here's some of the sort of unknown areas. That's not what occurs, of course. It is as if it is a murder trial, and everyone knows that the murder is that he is just that, he's guilty. And as a total, complete, 100% last-ditch effort, he decides he's going to testify, but at the same time is very cagey and good at not answering questions. And you watch it, and it's just like, this is a waste of time, other than recognizing this guy's guilty. I'm going to play for you Senator Ted Cruz just really brought to the stage the outrage regarding what is going on at the border, and Mayorkas simply some of the most fundamental, basic scenarios that are occurring at the border. Like, I don't know. For example, there are bracelets that continue. There are bracelets all over the place. You know how after some sort of festival, and they give you bracelets that show you're over 21 so you can drink, and then they're lying around everywhere. Well, there are different color-coded bracelets all over the place, and the different color codings represent a number of different things, evidently. I think largely how much, and they're found on children, how much is owed to the sex traffickers in terms of money for that child. And Ted Cruz, he's asking Mayorkas, and Mayorkas like, I don't know anything about those things. I don't know. First, however, I want to play for you audio from Senator John Kennedy, Republican, Louisiana, asking Mayorkas if he supported banning the private ownership of assault weapons. And this is that very meaningful exchange.
Mr. Secretary, do you agree with the President that we should ban the private ownership of assault weapons in America?
Senator, I do.
What is an assault weapon?
It is, for example, an AK-47.
Can you give me a definition other than just pointing to a specific weapon? Would there be other weapons besides an AK-47 you would ban?
There very well are, and I remember when I was a federal prosecutor in the Central District of California from September 25th, 1989 to, I believe it was April 2001.
And I thank you for your service, but if you could answer my question.
The vast majority of law enforcement officers, leaders with whom I worked were greatly in support of the assault weapons ban.
Mr. Chairman, you know why we get so frustrated with you? Because you won't give straight answers.
I think I just did.
No, you didn't. No, you didn't. Do you have a definition of an assault weapon?
I am confident there is a technical definition of what is an assault weapon, and it was assuredly used in the context of the statute that previously existed banning assault weapons.
Again, these exchanges are not about intellectualism, or the answers aren't anyhow. At this point, the one purpose they serve is exposing to the American people what frauds people like Mayorkas are, essentially anyone from the Biden administration. How do you support the ban for something you cannot identify? The point was made here by Senator Kennedy, and he did a fantastic job. I would have, in hindsight, you think, I wish he had asked this. I wish he had asked that. When he asked, can you define an assault weapon, and he said, well, AK-47. Of course, that wasn't a definition. That was an example. The question I would have liked to have heard him dance around was, what makes that an assault weapon versus other firearms? Now, of course, he would have had no answer because he, as you heard there, had no answer for any of those questions other than just answer, well, when I was a federal, majority of people in law enforcement, this and that. When you steal away the equality of words, you essentially make people slaves. Now, what do I mean by that? Let me explain. When I talk about the equality of words, I'm talking about the fact that words have actual definitions. They mean things. And objects have descriptions that we call words. This is why dictionaries exist. This is how dictionaries exist. Because we have, up until recently, agreed that if there was an object, an apple, for example, at some point we all decided this is called an apple. All right, everybody see it? Apple. Everybody understand? Apple. Apple. All right, we got it. Everyone got it. There are different categories of apples, of course, and we'll get into that later. Granny Smith, Honey Crisp, so forth. But just the basic, this is an apple. We can all agree. All right, so here we're going to write this down as a definition. That puts us all on equal footing when it comes to communication. If you ask me a question, I use words that are defined to give you an answer so you know what I'm telling you, all right? We are on equal footing in terms of understanding. When you take away definitions, you take away equality, because what that allows the person to do is enslave the recipient by way, for example, of saying, well, assault weapon. We should ban assault weapons. So the recipient says, okay, well, what does that mean? So we can be on equal footing. I can understand what it is that you're talking about. If there is no answer, that means they get to make it whatever they want. How do you debate that? How do you have a discussion with an individual over whether or not assault weapons should be banned based on effectiveness, the constitutionality, on any number of factors if you don't even know what it is? Same thing, and this is a point that was made with the latest brilliant Supreme Court mind regarding the fact that she cannot even define a woman. How is it that you are going to listen to cases before you, should the day come, and I'm sure it will if it hasn't already, regarding women and men if you can't even define what those things mean? It's no different than expecting somebody who doesn't even speak the language to listen to your argument and then make a decision as to how they feel based on your argument, because your words mean nothing to them. Trying to have a debate with somebody over banning of assault weapons when they can't tell you what that means that word is meaningless. It means nothing in the confines of the debate, because it gets to mean whatever they want it to mean. So having a discussion or a debate with somebody regarding the banning of assault weapons or the restriction of assault weapons, the regulation of assault weapons, when they can't define it, is no different than if I'm sitting there and somebody who speaks Mandarin to me and they are presenting some sort of point of debate in Mandarin and then expecting me to then reply. Well, I can't do that if I don't know what the words that are coming out of their mouth mean, because I don't speak that language, so I do not know what they're saying. And that's what they do when it comes to the usage of the term assault weapon. And that's how they wield power over people. They make it very difficult, or in many cases impossible, to debate them because it's a constantly moving target. And it's the same thing with climate change. Climate change, of course, they define it as anything that occurs whatsoever. And, of course, the issue with gender. Book banning is another one. What they define as book banning. Book banning isn't, to them, actually banning books from society, but not offering up pornography to 8-year-olds. That's how they define it. But if you ask them to define it, they'll dance around it. They won't give you an actual definition, because it means whatever it is they want to mean at that given moment for whatever purpose they have, which is usually just attacking the opposition. We've got some fantastic audio from Ted Cruz with Mayorkas coming up. Springfield's Talk 104.1. I'm Nick Reed. A couple great text messages coming up on the American Transmissions Talk and Text line. Aller Building Company, Woodvale Development is underway in Springfield. Aller Building Company, these are folks if you are wanting a brand new home. No remodeling necessary. You don't want anybody living in it before you. Then you might have ghosts and things like that. Aller Building Company, OLLER, under Nick's endorsements, KSGF.com. First alert forecast sponsored by Navant. Employee benefits that work. Sunny, 60 for a high today. Tonight, mostly clear, 42. Partly sunny, 66 on Thursday. Friday, showers, storms, high of 72. I'm a detail-oriented person. I understand people's minds work differently. All of our minds, to some degree, work differently. People who are artistic, their minds work much differently than people who are numbers, people in engineering, people, and you get some rare breeds that have a combination of all these things. And perhaps it is because I am detail-oriented, and at the same time, I would not say obsessed, but I am focused on any sort of discussion as to just getting it absolutely right. And that's why I'm so big into meaningful results. Okay, what's the goal here? What is the stated goal? It's frustration I have with so many different nonprofit organizations is they don't necessarily really state an act like this is how we know when we've succeeded. This is what it will look like. So how do you, if you don't have a finish line, then how do you know if you succeed? This is why definitions are so significant, because without definition, without the understanding of this is exactly what we are talking about, you can't ever know whether you have succeeded. And so, assault weapon. Someone had asked the question, can you provide us the definition of assault weapon? It might be good information in certain discussions. There is no definition of assault weapon. I mean, I suppose if I were to come up with an assault weapon, and an assault weapon is actually, in my mind, somewhat redundant because a weapon is something that you can use to assault someone. Baseball bat, tire iron, piano wire, antifreeze, anything that can be used to assault someone. In my mind, if you look at those two terms together, assault and weapon. But just out of curiosity, I thought, you know what, I'll Google this. Google this and see what pops up. So the default is Microsoft Bing, which I can't stand. But the first thing that pops up is what is defined by Bing as a definition summarized from 5 sources and the web. This is that definition of assault weapon. Assault weapon is a term that can refer to different types of firearms. Now, right out of the gate, that makes this not a definition because it's not defining anything. Assault weapon is a term that can refer to different types of firearms. They are usually automatic or semi-automatic and can accept detachable magazines. They may also have other features like a dagger, a switchblade, or a wrist rocket. Some jurisdictions include revolving cylinder shotguns as assault weapons. So in other words, what it's describing there is that there is no definition for assault weapon. Other than, as I mentioned, if you want to break it down and look at, it would be anything that could be used to cause harm or damage to someone. Now, of course, this is where the call to ban assault weapons is ridiculous because you'd have to ban rocks and bricks. Water. People are murdered by drowning every year, every month. I don't know how often it happens, but you understand the point. Really, peanuts for certain people are assault weapons. So anytime you hear any elected official going on and on, well, it's just so, we've got to ban assault weapons. That is meaningless. They aren't saying anything that actually has substance. Another question. Let's see here. Sorry, I didn't save these, but it was no, that's not it. It was a question regarding unlimited. Oh shoot! See, this is why I should save these things. All right. Oh, here we go. Why can't either side be reasonable? I'm former military and worked in counterterrorism operation abroad and strong constitutionalist, but but do we need unlimited round capacity in a magazine? Does that exist? Unlimited? So this is again, people, they may roll their eyes, but I'm such a stickler for definition because without defining something and everybody understanding the parameters of the discussion, you cannot come to any sort of agreement or at least understanding as to what each side said. Is there really unlimited? Even in video games, most video games anyhow, you still have to reload. So we're talking about large capacity. What does that mean? For some people, that's 6. For some people, that's more than 1. You have people like Joe Biden that think all you need is 1 bullet and you can just shoot the gun out of their hand. For some, it's 12. So we have to define these things to have these discussions. And then, okay, whatever your said number is, let's say it's 12. Is that going to prevent the person from having multiple magazines, from having multiple weapons? Well, no, probably not. But okay, well, then, and I approach all of these questions with 2 questions. One, is it constitutional? Is it the role of government? And the second question is, even if it is, will it work? Now, I find most of the time the answer to question number 1 is no, it's not constitutional. But generally, for the sake of discussion, I'll go ahead and entertain question 2, and that is, will it work? Well, let's play it out and think. And more times than not, the answer to that is no. Coming up, audio, Ted Cruz grilling Mayorkas regarding the border, and Mayorkas is, there's almost this indignant arrogance of, I don't have to answer your questions. One of the more appalling aspects of, I mean, I'll just be frank about it in political context, the Democrat Party, is their reaction to what's going on at the border now, revealing that they never cared about kids. Never. Going down there doing photo ops, crying, as Ocasio-Cortez did, in front of the cameras because the Trump administration carried on with the Obama administration's, quote, cages. Those are, quote, cages that the Obama administration built. Going so far as Kamala Harris did, referring to, was it the Klan or was it Nazis? I think Ocasio-Cortez called Border Patrol agents Nazis, while Kamala compared them to the Klan, if I remember correctly. What is going on at the border now is 10, 20, 100 times worse in terms of human atrocities than ever occurred under the Trump administration. Yet, not only do they not care about it, they refuse to even go to the border. Ted Cruz, and you can hear his absolute, it's not just frustration, it's anger with Mayorkas. And there's two exchanges here.
Mr. Mayorkas, has the crisis made aliens less safe? Yes or no?
Senator, we are seeking.
So you won't answer that question either. It's a yes or no. Has it made aliens less safe?
Senator, smugglers are exploiting.
Has the crisis made aliens, less safe? Are you willing to answer it?
Senator, the smuggling organizations.
Okay, you're filibustering again. Let me ask you this question. How many migrants have died under President Biden?
Senator, your phrasing of the question is actually quite misleading.
How many migrants died in 2022?
Approaching our southern border?
Yes.
Precisely why we are seeking to exclude the smuggling.
Do you know the answer? Do you know how many died?
I do not.
You do not. Of course you don't. I know how many died. 853.
That is
853. And by the way, here are the numbers that have died every year. You go back to 1998, you see it's consistently between 300 and 400, 300, 400, 300, 400. Suddenly, 2021, what happens? You get in office, and that red line are dead bodies. I've been on the Rio Grande, and I've seen dead bodies floating there who've drowned because of your refusal to do your job. You don't even know how many have died. What do you say to the Texas farmers and ranchers who find pregnant ladies dead on their property, who find toddlers dead on their property? What do you say to them?
I say that is why precisely we are taking it to the smuggling organizations.
But you are not. That is simply not true.
Number two, it is why we are dedicated.
Let me read from the Wall Street Journal. The Wall Street Journal 2 weeks ago ran an article entitled, "It's like a graveyard. Record numbers of migrants are dying at the border." The story begins with this chilling line, quote, Eagle Pass, Texas. Local officials keep a refrigerated truck to hold the bodies of migrants who drown in the currents of the Rio Grande while trying to cross the border into the U.S. Mr. Chairman, I ask unanimous consent that this article be entered into the record.
You know, I guess that's just who we are as a country. Remember that was the bumper sticker phrase that we heard constantly from Obama, constantly from Biden, constantly from Democrats whenever it came to securing our border. That's not who we are. I guess this is. And if you notice, it's always, wow, we're really taking it to them. Again, what are the results? Let's say even. You're really, really trying really hard. You are failing. Another exchange between Ted Cruz and Mayorkas yesterday.
You claim you care. Mr. Secretary, that is a lie. You know, some months ago, Karine Jean-Pierre stood up at a White House briefing and said, people are not just walking across the border. Was she telling the truth?
Senator, you are
Was she telling the
so
truth?
profoundly disrespecting.
Was she telling
my
the truth?
22 years
Okay,
of government service.
you get to answer questions. You don't
Senator,
get to give speeches.
Senator,
Did you hear that? Just pause that for a moment. If that does not give you the mindset of these people, Mayorkas said, you are profoundly insulting my 22 years of service in government.
I served as a federal prosecutor.
All right,
for
you're
12
refusing
years.
to answer. If you look at, she was lying, and she was not lying on her own. She was lying on behalf of the President of the United States. Now, the photograph people walking. She was lying on behalf of the President of the United States. This is a photograph from just one day along the Rio Grande of hundreds of thousands of people walking across the border. You have allowed this to happen. The photograph that was before, what are these wristbands?
I don't know what they are.
You
Senator.
don't know what they are. Mr. Secretary, you have just testified to the American people you're incompetent at your job, because I've been to the southern border, and if you go to the southern border, along the southern border, you see thousands of these wristbands because the illegal immigrants wear them. The drug cartels, every color corresponds to how many thousands of dollars they owe the cartels. You have turned these cartels into multi-billion-dollar criminal organizations, and these are modern-day leg irons, because these are children being sold into sex slavery, and you don't even know what they are. That is astonishing. Mr. Secretary, how many children have been sold into sex slavery under your administration?
Senator, we are taking it to the cartels.
How many children have been sold into sex slavery?
In
Do you know how many children have been sold into sex slavery?
To an unprecedented degree.
Mr. Secretary, I want to say to you right now,
It is
your
precisely-
behavior is disgraceful, and the deaths, the children assaulted, the children raped, they are at your feet, and if you had integrity, you would resign. And I will tell you, the men and women of the Border Patrol, they've never had a political leader undermine them. They despise you, Mr. Secretary, because you're willing to let children be raped to follow political orders. This is a crisis, it's a disgrace, and you won't even admit this human tragedy is a crisis.
Claiming 1 minute chairman time, Mr. Secretary, would you like to respond to any of those questions?
What the senator said was revolting. I'm not going to address it.
Your refusal to do your job is revolting.
It is not often somebody so absolutely despicable, is so transparently despicable, and on full display as Mayorkas during that hearing yesterday. I recall whenever the media was whipping people into a frenzy over the Trump administration using the cages built by the Obama administration. And I was in it was a neighborhood in the Memphis area. And there was a church, and they had a manger scene and the baby Jesus in a cage with, I forget what, some signage, but it was hitting at the Trump administration. It's just so anti-Christian. Where are all you left-wing churches that expressed outrage at the border policies of Trump? As Cruz pointed out there, I think it's more than a doubling since Biden opened up the border of women and children and other illegals that are killed, that die at the border. Where is your concern now? It's almost as if it was manufactured for political purposes. And we'll actually be talking with those two candidates in the upcoming hour. Bruner and Thomas Tate would not respond to our request for interviews. 60 seconds, we have news. Does putting a brand new roof on your home help you sell it? Does it get you more out of it? So you're going to sell your house $250,000 and you put a new roof on, it was $15,000. So $265,000 I can sell. Does it work that way? You know, there are certain things that people, this is something I learned from Emily Johnson, House Theory Realty. There are certain expectations people have when it comes to a home that they're looking to purchase that don't really increase the amount they're going to pay. That's just not how they view it. Is a roof one of those things? Well, these are all questions that Emily Johnson can answer for you. And the reason I mention this is, well, maybe you're looking to buy a home and somebody's like, well, we just put a brand new roof on it. So does that mean that you are on the hook to pay more if you want that home, or if you have a home that you're looking to sell and the roof's not that bad. It's probably going to need to be updated in 7 or 8 years. Is putting a new one on are you going to get all of that money back? Are you going to be able to add that value? That's why you need Emily Johnson, House Theory Realty. Don't spend anything on your home you are looking to sell because you think it is going to help you sell it faster or get more out of it without first visiting with her. That is my advice to you. Broker, owner of House Theory Realty, Emily Johnson. Coming up, we are going to chat with two individuals separately that are running for school board. There are 4 total, Springfield School Board. The 2 establishment candidates that have all of the big money establishment behind them, that is Judy Bruner and Sharita Thomas Tate. I don't believe they even bothered to respond to request. Okay,
and
so
I
they just
messaged them like 3 separate times.
Not really surprised that that's the case when you are in a position of essentially defending the direction of diminished results. You oftentimes don't want to sit with someone and be forced to answer questions about results. Instead you just buy TV ads and you say all the flashy things like, oh, yeah, well, no, well, sure, we'll listen to parents, unless they're book burners. And you just go that route. You get the news leader behind you, and so actual conversations aren't something that you're too keen on. 2 of the candidates said, yeah, definitely want to talk to as many people as possible and let them know our thoughts when it comes to the election. And so we will be speaking this hour with 2 of those candidates. Chad Rollins will be the first one coming up here in just a couple of moments. Right now, Jason Rima has the latest news update. First Alert forecast sponsored by St. Clair of the Ozarks Home Improvement. Sunny, 60 for a high today. Mostly clear tonight, 42. Partly sunny, 66 on Thursday. Friday, kicking off the weekend. Showers and storms. A high of 72. Let's talk 1041. I'm Nick Reed. We've got elections coming up, a lot of school board elections, and they are all extremely important. And fortunately, we've had this renewed understanding that people really need to pay attention to the school board elections and the importance and recognizing how significant they are. It's been an upside of some of the things that we've seen occur over the last couple of years. One of the names that you will see on the ballot for Springfield School Board is Chad Rollins. He joins us now, and I'd like to start, if you would, just tell everyone a bit about yourself and why it is that you decided to run for the school board in Springfield.
Hi, Nick. Thanks for the opportunity. My name is Chad Rollins, and I'm a father of 7 children. 2 of them recently graduated from the district, and 5 are still in the district. I'm a pharmacist at Health Direct, used to be Family Pharmacy, and a 1994 graduate from Glendale. Went to Missouri State and got a chemistry degree, and then on to UMKC Pharmacy School and got a degree there. And really invested in our community. I've been doing a lot through fitness the last 5 years. To give back to kids and, just help with different aspects all across the United States, actually. And wanted to find an area where I could serve the public more, in particular here at SPS, in the community where I grew up, and just give back to the community and be a positive influence on our school system.
What is it that you see as the role of a school board member, or if you were the job description of a school board member?
Right. So as far as the school board members go, I mean, 2 of their top priorities, or 3, is to set the strategic plan and policies so that administration and can put those policies to action. The other part of that is the fiscal responsibility of the budget. We have a $340 million budget. And, just making sure that money is spent wisely and well there. And then, hiring the superintendent when that part comes up, and really just being a voice and taking into consideration the opinions of the stakeholders, which is the parents, teachers, and staff within our district.
We're talking with Chad Rollins, running for school board in the Springfield School District. What is an area that you consider the Springfield School District is doing right, and you want to keep on that track and do more of it?
Right. So I'll say one thing that I've seen as a parent of the seven kids I have, especially in the younger ones. One thing I've liked recently is a few years ago, it seems like there was this push for Chromebooks and technology. And I've seen recently that, they're going back more to pencil, paper. Some lesson plans are coming home with my younger kids. And that really pushes parent involvement, in my opinion, and transparency of the curriculum. And I also think that helps kids learn better. And the Chromebooks aren't coming home with the younger ones anymore. And I know that's relatively new, and we have had a fall off on our test scores, and I think that this push for more pencil to paper textbooks is a good thing, and I think that'll be a big thing to help, and hopefully we can get that kind of moved on up into the older students, and I think that's one good thing that I've seen recently, and I think our community's good. I've always really enjoyed when I went to school here, and I think that we still have a community where people will come here for education, public education, but I can also see a little bit of it, that where people are starting to move out of the district, and one of my priorities will to make public school here in Springfield the number one choice for parents.
Well, and you mentioned seeing some move out of the district, getting their kids out of Springfield Public Schools. What's an area that you recognize as a top priority to switch things around, an area that we are definitely headed in the wrong direction, and that needs a focus?
Right. So I think there's a few things there, and they're kind of all intertwined. I've talked to a lot of teachers, a lot of staff, and a lot of parents over the last few months, and 2 things that stand out to me are, teacher retention and like I mentioned, the test scores going down. And so when I've talked to teachers, what they tell me about that is that the classroom environment, has changed, and quite honestly, sometimes, kids are distracted, or the way the behaviors are handled may not be intuitive to making a good positive environment in the classroom, to where we can focus on education, and that's the reason our kids are there. So I think looking at ways to make that classroom environment better and taking away distractions and better ways to handle the behaviors of students. And, I've got a few suggestions. I know Springfield doesn't have a cell phone policy, and I think that would help. With my kids, I can see, when they've got their cell phone that, it's just obvious that you can get distracted pretty easy that way. And then as far as the behaviors in the classroom, there's a lot of situations when I personally talk to teachers where they may be having all the kids leave the classroom, and they come in and they deal with the one kid that does need the help, but they interact with them individually, then bring the kids back in the classroom. I also have another example of a kid that he's in elementary school that has come in. He's a new kid to that class, and he uses some choice words that kids that age don't usually use, and disrespectful to the teacher, and some things I can't even say on the air here. And their solution for that is to wear noise canceling headphones for the entire classroom, and to change the seating arrangement. And those are two examples of things teachers are facing. So answering that part of it, I think, will help also raise our test scores, and I think that'll also, if we can get that environment in the classroom to be more manageable, to where teachers aren't having to police as much and they feel like their hands are tied, we can make a positive impact there as well.
Talking with Chad Rollins this morning as he runs for school board in the Springfield Public School District, an issue that's used to not be an issue at all. And a few years ago, some activists began trying to push for boys to be allowed in girls' sports if they identify as girls, up to and including in some districts. You've got the use of bathrooms and locker rooms, and in some school districts, even girls are told, well, if you don't like it, you just don't have to use the locker room, kicking them out instead. And while Springfield doesn't have the degree of an issue that some of the other schools do, I don't think it's something that's just going to go away. What do you feel about that particular issue when it comes to girls' sports and boys' that self-identify as girls and therefore think that they should be able to compete in girls' sports?
Sure, yeah. So being a fitness advocate, I think you have to look back at the beginning of sports, and the reason why you have female sports and male sports is not based on the gender. It's based on competitive advantage. And anytime you're going to give a competitive advantage to someone that is born as one gender and wants to compete as another, I don't think that's fair to the people that are that gender when they're born. So in my opinion, I think anytime you're going to give competitive advantage based on that, it shouldn't be allowed. And as far as the bathroom situation, I think that, a solution for that is, offering gender-neutral bathrooms. And then I do believe that you should use the locker room from the gender you were born, to avoid any controversy as far as other children that are trying to use those locker rooms.
One of the current school board members, Dr. M, was in the news several weeks back, and this was because of an event in which students, primarily students of color, were bussed out of class and out of the school, shipped over to MSU, where along with the NAACP and Borough Health Systems were being talked to about what MSU described as showing the benefits of higher education, but instead it turned into, among other things, one session that was about racial trauma, and Dr. M, as a school board member, and of course she's a mother as well, was there and noted that one of the experts who was speaking to the kids had them all close their eyes and ask them to raise their hands if they were victims of racial trauma. And Dr. M noticed that about 1 out of 5 or so students raised their hand, but they were lied to and instead told, as after they opened their eyes, every one of them raised their hands, and that was evidence that this was a real problem. And when she pointed out that the students were being lied to, it just became a full-on public assault through the news leader. You had the president of MSU and Burl, and you had even another member of the council, just all come down and attack her, and her position ultimately was, well, we shouldn't lie to kids, and theirs wasn't a denial of the lie, but they felt as if telling the kids that they were being lied to would disrupt them and be harmful to them. What are your thoughts, if you have any, on that division there between Dr. M, who says we should be honest with kids and treat them in that manner, versus all of the others who say otherwise?
Yeah, sure, no problem. So I was at that board meeting and was able to, firsthand listen to the accounts of what happened, and I would agree that this seemed like it was an attack on Dr. M for what she did. And quite honestly, I feel that Miriam is probably one of the most dedicated board members. I've watched how she works with other people. She really goes out into the community and makes sure she is being informed and bringing people's, opinions and what their needs are to the board meetings. And I feel that by her account, that she took her turn, raised her hand, and then pointed out, that, maybe only 10 out of the 30 students had raised their hand, was basically a fact. And, if I would say if my child was there and one of those 30 students, I would not appreciate that they're, being lied to and maybe manipulated, in that way. And I fully back Miriam, and I feel that she was basically stating the facts, and I don't feel that it's appropriate to lie to the students of SPS.
Any final thoughts for listeners, specifically those who are in the Springfield Public School District that will have the ability to vote in the upcoming election?
Sure. Yeah. So I just want people to know that I am here to be a positive influence and bring excellence back to our school system. And I'm going to work hard. I'm going to be, fair. I'm going to do what's expected for me. I'm going to read the handouts that are given to us and be informed and be prepared. I'm going to listen to all stakeholders, and ultimately I'll represent our district. And I have good intentions to do everything I can to help our community.
Chad Rollins running for Springfield School Board, Springfield's Talk 1041. I'm Nick Reed. All right, we will have another school board candidate interview coming up in just a bit. We've got half-price deals coming up, Local for Less Ozark. That will be Friday at 10 a.m., $50 gift cards to Rosie Joe's Cafe in Ozark for only $25. That'll be coming up again on Friday at KSGF the half price deal there, Rosie Joe's Cafe. Sarah Myers, everyone.
Thank you. Well, your home is one of the largest investments that you will make, so it's incredibly important to take care of it the best that you can. Now, why am I saying this? Well, because there is one thing that protects your home from a lot of those outside elements, and that is your roof. So if you have not had a roof inspection in a long time, or if you're thinking to yourself, it's probably time that I need to get a new roof, highly recommend my friends over at the Pyramid Roofing Company. Now, I love to recommend them. I had them do tons of work out at my house. They did not only the roof on my home, but also my garage and my cellar. And every time that it rains, every time that we have a severe thunderstorm watch or a warning or tornado watch or warning, I feel a little bit safer knowing that my house is protected, that my cellar is protected, and it just gives me a little bit of an ease of mind. So if you are in that situation where you're thinking, oh, I need to get somebody out to take a look at my roof, highly recommend the Pyramid Roofing Company. They're top-notch individuals. They will be upfront and honest with you, and they're good folks. So you can find all the contact information for Josh and the Pyramid Roofing Company housed at ksgf.com under the Sarah's Endorsements tab.
All right, everyone. Landon McCarter, we will speak with him coming up, as he also is on the ballot, Springfield School Board. Those elections coming up on Tuesday. A traffic update now. I'm Nick Reed. .1041, I am Nick Reed, and we have school board elections coming up all over the country, Springfield specifically, and we have, though we note, obviously, significance and importance with all of the area school board elections. We've focused on Springfield for a number of different reasons, and we have over the years, and we want to welcome Landon McCarter. He is one of the individuals running for the school board. Thank you for being with us, and if you would just tell people a bit about yourself and why it is that you decided to run for Springfield School Board.
Well, thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it. So my name is Landon McCarter. You'll see me first on the ballot. I'm number 1 this year. And the reason that I chose to run and a little bit about myself is my father was a Springfield public school teacher. He taught algebra for 30 years. My mother was a teacher and teacher's aide for 14 years. My brother graduated from SPS. My sister graduated from SPS. I graduated from SPS in 2003 and won a state basketball championship from Kickapoo. And then I went to Missouri State, got my degree in marketing, and I've been building a business in Springfield for the last 14 years. I've had multiple businesses, and I currently run a large ad agency that has about 40 employees here in Springfield, Missouri. And we are, an ad agency that specializes in the financial and insurance market specifically. I currently have 3 children. I'm happily married to the woman way out of my league. My kids go to SPS. They are 13, 10, and 8. They go to Disney and Cherokee. And the reason that I am running for school board is because you hit a certain point in your career where you have to make sure that you give back to the community that has given you so much. That may sound a little cliche, but I really mean that. I'm born and raised here. I really believe that Springfield, Missouri is the best place on planet Earth to raise a family. It's, in my opinion, getting involved in the community is very important for me to do as a man, as a citizen, et cetera. And I have a history with education. I was raised by teachers, and the teachers that raised me taught me that the educational system is the foundation of our community, one of the pillars. So I want to serve these kids. I want to serve these teachers. I want to serve our community by getting involved in the Springfield Public School Board.
Talking with Landon McCarter, who's running for Springfield School Board. What would be your job description, if you will, of a school board member?
Yeah, well, luckily, we actually have that laid out for us specifically. So I don't really have to, come up with that on my own. But basically, we are in charge of hiring and overseeing and evaluating the superintendent. That's our one employee. We also have to basically take the strategic plan that was just passed and then monitor performance of that plan, really recommend, implement, and monitor like any type of policy and procedure. We have fiduciary oversight of the budget. That's the biggest one. So in my opinion, my answer of that is really just we're here to listen and be a community liaison of what the community wants. We are elected members to be representing the community that elected us. And so it's our job to be listening to the community and, having the fiduciary oversight of the budget to make sure that the budget is aligned with the community's goals and expectations, but also listening to the teachers and the parents of SPS as well to really align the community to get these kids the best education as we possibly can by putting the right people, in place. In terms of just leading the district, if that makes sense.
Yeah. What is an area currently that you feel things are headed in the right direction? You see it in the school systems. You think, all right, yeah, we should be doing more of this. We need to continue this. Any particular area that you note?
Yeah. So my answer to this question just comes from a personal experience with my students. I've seen a marked increase in communication with me as a parent and my wife. I think that parents need to be communicated with often and early, and I also think we need to try to, as a district, lean a little bit less on like the online portals for students to be able to check in with their kids and more just communicating with what's going on in their classrooms, especially in the early stages. Like an example is that I have a 13-year-old son that goes to Cherokee, and they have this thing called the ICU list, which is basically a list. If you miss a key assignment, you're able to get on that list, and then we get text messages as parents. Well, nobody cares more about the success and the excellence of my child than me. And so by the school communicating with me, I'm able to really get that under control extremely quickly because we have high expectations in our family. And so, that communication is imperative. So I've seen a marked increase in parent communication, at least with the sites that my students go to at Disney and Cherokee. And that's a direct part of the strategic plan as well. So I believe that, communicating with parents and putting them at the table as much as possible is super important, and communication and transparency is how you do that.
Talking with Landon McCarter, running for Springfield School Board. The opposite side, any major red flags if you were to come in and everyone's asked as new school board members are reelected, all right, what do you think should be number one priority that we need to turn around because we're definitely headed in the wrong direction? What might that be?
Yeah, well, unfortunately, all the metrics that matter are telling us that. When you look at the MAP scores, we are the lowest ranked district in the different subjects compared to our local counterparts. Our ACT scores have been dropping for 12 years. Our reading levels are dropping. Our math proficiency is dropping. So unfortunately, when it comes to the curriculum and the actual academic rigor, our district is falling behind based on the measurable metrics that we can see, from testing the students, right? So that's an important piece that needs to be under control. There needs to be communication and resources allocated to make sure that these academic markers are stabilized, and we can start, seeing us go in a positive direction. I mean, whenever we have a $340 million a year budget as a district, we should be cranking out little Navy SEALs and be able to, hire and attract the best talent of the area. We shouldn't be having, teachers rapidly retire like they are in record levels. We are seeing a mass exodus of the talent of our teachers that have been there for forever, and that's got to stop. And the way that we can stop that as a board member is to really make sure the policies and procedures are behind the teachers, not tie their hands on certain things. I believe that one of the marked reasons for the academic decline is that we just need to have a higher standard of academic excellence, but also behavioral excellence and disciplinary excellence. We can't allow several students to disrupt the learning environment of the entire group, and sometimes teachers just have to leave that situation in the classroom, or they're left to deal with it. We're asking them to do too much, pretty much asking them to be social workers along with police officers in some cases. So I really, 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 really care about the distractions in the classroom that keep us away from the core curriculum, and why I believe that we're seeing decreased academic scores.
Talking about distractions, of course, different people have different ideas about what is a distraction. Over the last several years, a big social movement has hit so many public school systems throughout the country. One of them, of course, is dealing with whether or not boys who want to identify as girls can compete against girls and use their locker rooms. And while some will argue that, there's no need to worry about it, this isn't a widespread problem in Springfield, I don't think many people are arguing that it's just going to go away. What are your thoughts on that and on the issue of girls, many of which across the country are fighting back and saying, no, we should not be forced into these situations? Your feelings and thoughts about genders in sports and locker rooms.
Yeah, so, I mean, to me, your biological sex is important on which locker room and bathroom that you use. If there is some sort of situation, I don't want to be misunderstood. I mean, as a Springfield Public School system, we are in charge of making sure that every student is taken care of. Most of the policies that have been implemented on this whole bathroom and locker room thing in Springfield, in terms of using like neutral bathrooms, has mostly solved those issues. But this really gets back to, I don't want to say that a struggling student is necessarily the distraction and we need to get them out of our school. That's not what I'm saying. I want to be very careful in the way that I articulate this, is that there's only so much bandwidth that administrators and teachers have. We have 174 days of class with these kids, and every moment of class time that is not given towards the actual academics of the goal of the actual class in and of itself is the distraction that I'm talking about. And so a lot of these social and political agendas that are trying to creep into our classrooms just don't have any place in the classroom, in my opinion. But also it goes up to the top level of the leadership. If you want to, I don't know if your listeners are aware of the last board meeting, but there was a huge issue with the last board meeting. And in the matter of 4 days, the board rearranged the agenda and then demoted Dr. Miriam from vice president to just a regular sitting member, and showing us that the board can act very swiftly, right? Well, why were we able to act so swiftly in that particular situation when we have real problems facing our district that we're just kind of deliberating and kicking the can down the road? So these types of distractions, these social political agendas, just all this other stuff is really getting in the way of just the basic academics of what we're trying to accomplish as a school district. And unfortunately, our test scores and our students are suffering because of it.
Talking with Landon McCarter, running for Springfield School Board. Last question I'll ask, and then any final thoughts you have, and it's a bit off of what you just mentioned, and there's been media coverage over the last well, I think it seemed as if it started around the end of February, early March, and this busing of kids to MSU for this event with the NAACP and Borough Health Systems, and Dr. M, as a school board member, was there observing, and she noted that at one point the speaker asked all the kids to close their eyes, asked them to raise their hands if they had personally experienced racial trauma, and about 1 out of 5 raised their hand, but they were lied to. They were told that all of them raised their hand, and that was used as the premise for the fact that the racial injustice was prevalent. And Dr. M pointed out that the truth of the matter, and there became a huge public assault on her. And what is interesting is thus far, it appears no one's denied that the students were lied to. So you had this public battle on one side saying we should be honest with students, particularly when it comes to issues of education or emotional trauma, whatever it may be, and the other side that said, well, telling them the truth is disruptive. Telling them the truth in that setting can be harmful. And that's a real division in approach there. What are your thoughts of that whole scenario and no, we should be honest and clear with students versus, well, if we lie to them, so be it. And if anybody tries to disrupt things by being truthful with them, that is not in the best interest of the students.
Yeah, so thank you for covering that, because I didn't know if we had time to really go there. But in my opinion, this situation really sums up the dysfunction of the school board currently. The current situation, of course, you should never lie to kids. You should never manufacture these things. This is completely unacceptable. And I believe Dr. Miriam, as her word, and like you said, no one has come out and said that they didn't lie to kids. But for some reason, Dr. Miriam raising her hand and saying 7 words and saying, I think only, about 10 kids raised their hands became the issue. And it speaks to the dysfunction of the current Board of Education. In the matter of 48 hours, that agenda item to demote Dr. Miriam for asking that question, to call out the truth, was on the ballot and voted. And there was an hour and a half of deliberation at the board meeting to be able to get that done, which we are reorganizing the board in 30 days. So it was basically this manufactured lies to our kids. And then somehow Dr. Miriam ended up on the short side of that sort of public outcry and public tar and feathering, right? And no one really wants to bring up the fact that she was just calling out lies, right? And then also the board just moved so swiftly to just do this dog and pony show of like demoting Dr. M before they even really asked her like her side or really got the facts together or anything like that. That was already on the agenda. There was nobody reached out to her before the actual meeting. And then it just shows to we have real issues facing our district. And I think parents and community members are just sick of seeing this political posturing on the board and not just results oriented discussion and deliberation, which is what the point of the board is for. So that to me is the situation is it's less about, the specific situation of did they lie. It's clear that they lied to the kids. But I'm more importantly focused on the dysfunction of the leadership of the district, of a $340 million budget taking a majority of the meeting to deliberate something that is basically meaningless, to demote Dr. Miriam for 30 days before we reorganize on the 11th of April. It just seems a little silly to me.
And any final parting thoughts, words for people as they are going to be considering whom they cast their votes for with the Springfield Public School Board?
Yeah, so I just want to make sure that you guys know that April 4th, it's so important that you guys go out and vote, do your research, understand the candidates. What I believe is very simple. I believe that, my legacy and also my entrepreneurial success has given me a lot of ability to look at certain situations, work with the team, and solve the problems of the district. Right now we're seeing academic decline. So you kind of have a choice if you do your research. Do you want to elect existing educators that have been in the belly of the beast for the last, decades, and do you want more of the same, or do you want to bring in some new blood to represent the community? That's kind of like your choice that you have to make, because essentially you've got educators on one side and then business people on the other. So to me, that's a little bit of a choice that you have to make as a voter.
Landon McCarter on the ballot, Springfield Public School Board, Springfield's Talk 104.1. I'm Nick Reed.
Go Patrol.
Cleaning out your garage is never pleasure. Nobody likes to do that. In fact, many people, when they call garage experts and they're going to have their garage complete makeover and improvement done, that is the only time that they actually do a major clean out. I know it was great for me to do that, to completely and totally unclutter everything. But as the weather is getting nicer, I genuinely am looking forward to cleaning out the garage, because it's sort of like, for me, mowing. If I have a patchy lawn that's filled with crabgrass and dandelions and so forth, mowing it's not that pleasurable, because all it does is look like a crappy yard that just got mowed. But if it's a lush yard, if it's got healthy grass, there's pleasure in mowing it. It just looks so nice and so full, and you just really enjoy doing that. It's the same thing with cleaning out the garage. With my transformation and garage experts, the customized storage, the flooring process and the coloring of it, and everything that I had done. So that spring cleaning, which frankly is not a whole heck of a lot that I have to do. I'll probably hose her out and maybe put a few things up, but other than that, it's going to be a tremendous pleasure to do so. It's just another gift that I gave myself when it came to having garage experts do the complete transformation of my garage. Give them a call, give them a holler, have them come do a consultation with you. It's no pressure, doesn't cost anything clearly, and plus you'll get a chance to meet some really great people in Mark and Shelley Long. That's Garage Experts under Nick's endorsements, ksgf.com. I guess we lost that caller. Somebody had called in. Somebody said they prefer dandelions. Well, to each his own. Maybe that's them again. American Transmissions talk and text line 447-KSGF. This past hour, we had two of the candidates for Springfield School Board. Should you have missed either of those interviews, we will have them up in the podcast section, so you can listen to those there. The incumbent, or not, well, one's an incumbent. The two establishment candidates, that would be Judy Bruner and Sharita Thomas Tate, did not respond to numerous contacts or attempts to contact regarding an interview. So that's why we only have the two that are there. I'm going to take a quick break here, and that is going to include traffic. And in the upcoming hour, I do have some additional new information, latest developments. Plus, there's a piece in the Federalist that I thought was just a really profound piece regarding the shooting that took place. Also, a pretty high-profile transgender has gone to TikTok talking about the need for the quiet transgender community to speak out against the radicals, that are well. I will let you listen to this individual's words as a transgender in the upcoming hour, and then you can characterize it for yourself. But I think that it's very telling. City of Springfield is now the official owner of Hammons Field. Now, that includes the parking lot directly across Traffic Way, which is south of the stadium. And now there's been a lot over the last several seasons. I don't know if you'd call it controversy, but unhappiness regarding the parking lot, because when it was privately, the pricing, it was going up. And it was, when you have the price to park, the cost to park twice or more of what a ticket costs to go see the game, you can see why that is a deal of frustration for many people. But now that we as taxpayers have been forced to purchase that, that's fantastic news, because now we own it. We don't have to pay to park there. Oh, yes, we do. Yes, we do. According to this news leader, one of the local outlets, another change to the baseball experience includes the reduction. Now, you may own the parking lot as taxpayers, but that doesn't mean that you just get to use it without paying the government. See, this is so brilliant. Oh, but they're going to charge you less as an owner of the parking lot than before. So we should be grateful for that. A reduction in the price to park in the parking lot that we as taxpayers in Springfield have been forced to purchase. The parking lot is now reduced to $10. So I guess that's how that works. I guess we're paying ourselves. Is that the upside to it? News coming up in 60 seconds. I'm Nick Reed. Floors Plus in Nixa, Floors Plus in Springfield. The Nixa location, it's in that little cluster of establishments on the other side of the highway from Walmart. The Springfield location is just next to, I think that's a Rapid Roberts. It's a Conoco on Walnut and Campbell. It used to be a shoe place. I forget what shoe place it is, but for, almost 2 years now. I know over a year ago that they opened that facility. 0% financing for 12 months, which is a really great deal, especially when you're talking about quality installment from craftsmen, whether that is the flooring or the plus part of the flooring, maybe a customized shower, bathroom, having incredible tiling done there, as opposed to sort of, the big sheets of faux tile or the one-piece shower that just kind of plunks into place. If you'd like something a little higher quality that demonstrates craftsmanship, then I recommend Floors Plus. They'll come do an evaluation. They're great guys and gals over there. I definitely recommend them to you. Floors Plus, Nixa Springfield. You can find them under Nick's endorsements, ksgf.com. Talking about school board elections coming up next Tuesday, so I guess a week from yesterday. And there was an actual Springfield School Board meeting yesterday, and on the American Transmissions Talk and Text line, Pat is with us and was at that school board meeting. You wanted to make mention of some of the subject matter, something that was discussed at that school board meeting, correct?
Yes, I did. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for taking my call. I appreciate your comments, and I listen to you regularly, and particularly the two candidates you had on, which I fully support, and been involved in education in Springfield for a number of years, as well as I attend most school board meetings and speak often. We have to turn that board some way. And I was just looking at the news misleader as we speak, and they had the fundraising in there. Judy Brunner has $85,000 or something like that, backed by the whatever you call them, think they're elite or whatever. She was a former principal at Central High School. In the last few years, we've gone with Central, not all her fault, I'm sure, but was a number 4 in the state, a gold medal international baccalaureate school, to now like 600, not even on the charts. And we're worse than that in a lot of areas. But what I really wanted to mention, and I wish we're losing teachers right and left, and I think your family has been, and I've heard you talk about your family of teachers. Teachers are leaving as soon as they can, and that's very sad considering all the other problems that we have to deal with. The president of the NEA spoke last night at the meeting, and it was a handful of information in the 3 minutes that they give us. And I would like to hear a response from the superintendent, who, as one of your candidates mentioned, the board only has one employee, and that's the superintendent. And they, in my opinion, no board has properly instructed or directed to have the superintendent do what needs to be done. This NEA president spoke about how teachers are dissatisfied, how they're leaving as soon as they can. She's addressed the board before on this. That they keep trying to hire more people. We currently have 5 buildings of administrators. That means people that think they're going to tell teachers how to teach. We have excellent teachers in Springfield. They should be left alone and let them teach. Give them a book or a Chromebook part-time or whatever, and leave them alone. But according to the NEA president, and I believe it, I have a call in for her, because it's been my theory for a long time. Just in the past year, the superintendent hasn't even been on board 2 years and already had 2 pay raises, up somewhere over $300,000. She's done the little magnet schools, the Wolf schools, the Bass Pro, the theaters, the airline school, and that kind of thing. But the majority of our kids are not being addressed with their problems. Anyway, I digress. They have added administrative people that are not qualified. This president of the NEA listed them to the tune, I don't know how many, there would be a dozen or more, over $1 million a year in salaries. They've added these people to supervise teachers that they're not as qualified as the teachers are to teach. I hope that we can turn this board. It was shameful what happened with Mary M, Dr. M. Never should have been a public airing. It wasn't that kind of a problem. We had one board member, Danielle, that she sits there year after year and never says a word about educating our kids. But she led the charge to, as one of the candidates said, demote Dr. M for 30 days or whatever it is. But unless we can control that board, we have a serious problem in Springfield. Thank you for letting me talk.
Well, and one, thank you for being involved and in keeping up with what is going on as a citizen. A lot of people think, and I've heard this comment. It's almost cliche. Well, I don't have kids in the district, so it doesn't really affect me. Well, one, if you're in the district, you're paying taxes that support the district, but also, these kids are the, quote, future. These are the future doctors. These are the future police officers. These are the future everything. And part of what, and this is where this is a disease, if you will, that is spreading. We see what is happening with medical institutions, and they are already shifting away from medicine and instead diversity and inclusion, and you indoctrinate kids at a young age, and then you get them into that. And what is medical care going to look like in 20 years? What is engineering going to look like in 20 years? When it comes to plane crashes, for example, generally, when you hear about these plane crashes, and one that occurred recently, it was upon descent, and it basically stalled out. And I have friends who are pilots, commercial, in fact, one retired, and he's, in the past, as others have noted, it's really a training and education thing. In fact, some of those airlines are not allowed to fly in the United States and in Europe because of a lack of ability by the pilots due to culture and training, and it makes it more dangerous. And we are headed in those directions. We weren't leader of the free world when it comes to medicine and technology and the arts and thought just by accident. It was because of the culture that we fostered here, and that was one of critical thinking largely. As we move away from that, we are going to become less and less that. We're going to be more and more like these countries where you end up developing pilots that aren't allowed to fly into other countries because the proper level of training isn't there. I mean, even our own military, we just see this focus while other countries, China, Russia, are focusing on turning their soldiers into the most effective fighting machines in existence. We're running recruitment ads about diversity and these cartoons to recruit for the military. It does affect all of us tremendously. And so the school boards should not be written off as elected institutions that guide the direction of another institution for people that don't impact me, because they impact everybody, without a question. It is so simple. This is a matter of whether we continue to go down the path of failure or we don't. I mean, it really boils down to that. And the benefit that we have, frankly, most people don't have the time, or just allocating their time priorities differently than others, to know much about the candidates. And of course, the candidate, they'll run these TV ads, and of course the TV ads are going to say, I'm wonderful, and I'm going to listen to parents. I mean, what the hell else are they going to say? Hey, just so you know, I'm mediocre. Or, or I think we should continue to do what doesn't work. But here's what you have the benefit of knowing. There are two candidates on the ballot that are part of the system that has been failing. Then there are two that are not. The two that are not are taking the approach, hey, we need to start doing things differently and stop doing this. Now, do we know that the two candidates in which we spoke with the last hour are going to have all the right answers? Have no idea. But we know that the two establishment candidates have the wrong ones. And they don't go. Their position is not, you know what? Wow, we really learned from our mistakes. We have been doing things wrong, either as Thomas Tate as a current school board member, or as Judy Bruner as somebody who's part of that machinery and has been for years. That there isn't this awakening. They don't present themselves as individuals that say, boy, we recognize now all the things we were doing were wrong. We need to move another direction. No, they want to keep going that same direction. And so the one thing that everyone can have the benefit of knowing, even without having to know what their background is and what their degree is and what their parents did for a living, who says we need to continue to go to the direction of failure versus those who say, no, we need a new direction? Jason Ryman with the latest news update. First alert forecast, sunny 60 for high today, clear tonight 42, partly sunny 66 tomorrow, shower storms Friday, high of 72. And I'll make one other remark. There's an ad that's running that is specifically promoting Chad Rollins and Landon McCarter, the outsiders, if you will, the non-establishment candidates for school board. And the ad, it's making the point that experience, the establishment candidates like, we have all this experience. Look, we've been part of the system forever and so forth. And they're saying that's not the problem. Leadership's the problem. And yes, I understand their point, and this is true. However, maybe this is semantics. I would argue that experience right now in this race is the problem. The experience of failure, the experience of the establishment that continues to fail our children. They have a lot of experience in that. So that is it's the type of experience they have. And the refusal to correct, the refusal to recognize that the direction they support has resulted in failure, and then the embracing of, let's make a change in order to better serve the students. To have traffic. I'm Nick Reed. Facebook Live and YouTube. You can watch the show streaming. That thanks to Springfield Wraps, designer of the KSGF studio. The FBI is not treating the shooting in Nashville that killed 6 as an act of domestic terrorism. The Attorney General Garland stated that the motive will determine if the massacre was a hate crime or not. I don't like hate crime to me. If you kill, you kill. The life of a person, So, for example, there's certain punishments that are supposed to be deterrents, right? But not all punishment is meant to be a deterrent. I don't believe, anyhow. Or at least it serves another purpose. The other purpose that punishment serves is a reflection of the value of the victim. This is why I believe if you deliberately take someone's life, your life should be taken from you. And I'm not necessarily talking death penalty, but just you should never get out of prison. I see these sentencings where, someone, they take someone's life, their entire, and it's not just their life, but they've taken a piece of the life of everyone that loved that person, and they go to get sentenced to 15 years? That, to me, diminishes the value of the victim's life. When we talk about hate crime enhancements for punishment, so we're talking about 6 dead people, 3 of which are children. Is their life really less valuable? Do we want to treat it as less valuable simply because the person who killed them had a motivation that wasn't, quote, hate? See, I don't care what the reason is. This individual, which of course, this person is dead anyhow. So, talking about in the context of punishment, that does not come into play here, unless, of course, they're going to go after the parents. But that's a whole nother discussion. So, the whole concept of hate crime and enhancing through punishment the value of the victim's life, or diminishing it based on the motivation for it, I don't agree with that. It's my personal preference on the whole situation. But I will note, there have been numerous instances in this administration where there has been a killing, and because of who the victim is, it was immediately announced that they would be approaching it from a hate crime perspective. And I know this because I've had this discussion on air, noting they don't even know what the motivation was yet. How can they say this is a hate crime and investigate this as a hate crime if they don't know the motivation of the person? Yet here, for whatever reason, Merrick Garland is saying, well, we can't decide yet. We have to know the motivation. Isn't that interesting? A 180-degree difference in approach. Meanwhile, the White House doubling down, blaming Republicans for the mass shooting. Jean-Pierre appeared on Morning Joe yesterday to support President Biden's renewed push for an assault weapon ban in the wake of Nashville. Again, there is no definition of assault weapon. So when you're talking about banning assault weapons, what does that mean? She said, we need Republicans in Congress to show some courage. And Joe Biden, he is out there, his position, politically it's smart because it plays off the ignorance, saying, I've done everything I can. It's up to Republicans now. Really? You did everything you can? Why is it up to Republicans? Well, it's up to Republicans because they control Congress. They did not control Congress the first 2 years of your administration. Democrats controlled it all. Every bit of it. This is how you know they know that the legislation is meaningless. If they really, and this is part of the anger that I feel at their fake outrage, they act as if it is such a no-brainer. They claim that the people responsible for not passing a so-called assault weapons ban they have blood on their hands. So the Democrat Party that controlled Congress and the White House the first 2 years of the administration? Is the blood on your hands? You could have done it. You had complete control. The Obama administration had the same benefit. They were too obsessed with passing Obamacare to worry about it. We saw mass shootings during the Obama year, and the Democrats would trot out the exact same finger-pointing blame game. Well, it's the Republicans' fault because they won't pass an assault weapons ban. Why did you not pass a so-called assault weapons ban during the 2 years that the Democrats controlled everything of the Obama administration? These are the same people who claim they know it works because they claim it worked in the 90s, which, by the way, they use fixed numbers. In fact, there is no analysis in terms of gun violence to the so-called assault weapons as they were listed in that legislation during the 90s. There's no numbers that show that it was effective. In fact, the opposite is true. But that aside, they claim it's a no-brainer. Everyone knows it. We did it before and it worked. So the people responsible for not doing it again are to blame, yet they twice have had 2 year spans in which they could have done it and did not do it. They know that it's total crap. They are lying. There is the media is mocking Christians. The people who are actually victims in this, that's classy. But also there is and I want to play for you come up some audio, LGBT activists. Scratch that. It is a trans personality on TikTok calling for common sense from the trans silent majority, which is what this trans person argues is not for this grooming, not for the drag show, but we are a majority and we have got to speak up against the left-wing nut jobs who are trying to carry the rainbow flag mantra in our name. That and more all coming up. I'm Nick Reed. We're going to get a traffic update here, but just a couple of quick things on Biden as he continues to be very presidential in bringing the country together. I'm going to play this audio, and it references a question or a statement claim made by Senator Josh Hawley regarding this anti-Christian sentiment and how potentially, given that it was a Christian church targeted, that there could be an anti-Christian bigotry aspect to this. And Biden was asked about that, and as usual, you're going to hear some background noise. The helicopter's going on.
Do you believe that Christians were targeted in Nashville school shooting? Do you believe that Christians were targeted?
I have no idea.
Josh Hawley believes they were. What do you say to that?
Well, I probably don't then.
Probably don't.
No, I'm joking. No, I have no idea.
So what was the exchange there was saying, to, Josh, do you think that this is targeted because of Christians? And he's like, well, and so, well, Senator Josh Hawley thinks so, to which Biden jokes, well, I probably don't think so, then laughs and says I'm joking. Because, I mean, isn't this where someone would say too soon? Is it too soon to be laughing and joking about this situation? Biden also yesterday claimed, quote, you're not allowed to go out and own an automatic weapon. Yes, you are. I mean, not just anyone. There are very strict rules and regulations, particularly when it comes to, quote, he went on to say you're not allowed to own a machine gun. Yes, you can. There's conditions. Yes, you can. He said you're not allowed to own a flamethrower. I know a number of people that own flamethrowers. These people, are so detached from morality and the truth. It does not bother them to just lie left and right. And this is also a tremendous reflection on the media. And they know they can lie about anything. They don't even have to worry about whether it's true. Well, it's all, you can't own that. You can't own that. You can't. Yes, you can. Yes, you can. Yes, you can. As usual, people who lie and lie consistently are demonstrating even they recognize the truth is not on their side. First alert forecast, sunny 60 for a high today, clear 42 tonight, partly sunny 66 tomorrow, Friday showers and storms, a high of 72. So what we've got here, by the way, there is new information coming out that aside from why specifically that school was targeted by the shooter, this was a person that had a number of emotional issues. There's a new report out that is regarding a posting that the shooter had made about her significant other having like not a spouse but some relationship having dying, and so she went into great mourning, and it was at that point it appeared to be a catalyst for this transgender situation, because according to the report, it was in that same posting or right after that that she said that she was now going to go by him. There are clearly a lot of emotional issues here. However, what we have are even people in the media and left-wing activists that are almost presenting this as understandable because of legislation in certain states that are meant to protect girls' sports and girl locker rooms. There's a story, and it lists, just to give you an idea of the position some of these people are taking, one left-wing activist on Twitter saying, "I don't condone Audrey Hale's actions, though I understand their outrage against an intolerant state that brainwashes children through religious indoctrination." Now, what that does is that makes it seem reasonable. What you are telling people when you say that is, well, I don't necessarily agree with it. I understand it. You have the media mocking prayer, mocking Christianity. Now, in the midst of this, I want to play for you. Well, and here's perhaps the word, and I did mention this yesterday, but there was this Trans Day of Vengeance that was being promoted. One of the areas it was recommending get targeted, claiming there's a genocide against trans, was it mentioned Nashville, which is where this took place. Now, we don't know that that's what prompted, or whether the shooter saw that, whether that was the triggering point that felt as if, all right, this is my call to. We don't know the answer to that. You would think, however, that maybe they'd say, ooh, we should pull this back a little bit, or in the name of unity and not promoting hate, we won't go forward. But apparently they're moving full force forward with this. The group scheduled to hold the Trans Day of Vengeance outside the Supreme Court Saturday, saying the time is now. The trans, non-binary, gender non-conforming, intersex communities facing astronomical amounts of hate from the world. Now, while all of this is going on, I'm going to play some audio from a transgender individual that was posted on TikTok in the after the shooting took place.
Honestly, if you're trans in my audience, know that we need you to stand and speak out with us, because I'm afraid the pendulum is swinging back, and I don't know if we're going to be able to stop it. I started speaking out because I wanted to stop it at the bottom. It's going to be much harder to do that as these activists continue to harm our community. And so speak up, speak out. And if you're not trans in my audience, I thank you for tuning in. I thank you for standing up for reasonable, rational trans people who just want to live their lives. It's much appreciated, because we're not these crazy people that we're seeing all over the place. The crazy activists, they are only harming our community. And with what happened this weekend and then the shooting today, those trans activists need to realize that they are just creating perpetual harm on our acceptance rate. And not even just our acceptance rate, the acceptance rates of the LGBT community. Gays and lesbians want to leave us behind as it is. And it's hard to blame them sometimes. I am thankful every day for the community that I have surrounding me. Gays Against Groomers has been absolutely wonderful in defending me. I mean, they know that our voices are powerful when it comes to ending a lot of this stuff. But our trans friends, absolutely. I mean, we need to be standing up. We need to be standing up more.
Now, this is an individual that has got a far greater representation than the media wants you to believe. People will oftentimes say, and I used to be one of those individuals, you folks in the gay community, in the lesbian community, in these communities, you better start speaking up. Because these crazy people are defining you. And what I would learn, and how much of this, while it was occurring versus post-occurring, but I would come to realize these groups do exist, but their voices are being suppressed. The media never, ever talks. If you get your... I mean, has the news leader in any story that they have written about the issue of trans ever talked about detransitioners, ever talked about gays against grooming, ever talked about the trans community that is out there saying this drag show stuff with kids, all of that stuff is radical, that does not represent us? Do they ever present that side? No, they don't want you to know it exists. Those people in their minds are traitors. Now, I don't know what the breakdown is. This individual, who goes by Sarah Higdon, a transgender, claims that it's the majority of the trans community are not these people that are being represented in the media, defined by the activists. I thought the notation was interest, the recognition that the gay and lesbian community is already leaving their support for the trans community, and as noted by that activist, it's because of the way they're being defined. And by the way, not being defined by conservatives, by Christians, but by the left. Every time they take a side with some transgender over an issue, who is it? It's somebody giving a lap dance to a kid. It's somebody that wants pornography in elementary schools. Here's a story, for example. A new viral video shows a drag queen straddling a young girl during an LGBTQ pride event at a North Carolina school that enrolls students as young as 14. A video obtained by Libs of TikTok showed multiple adults laughing and watching a drag performer give a lap dance to a student at the Forsyth Technical Community College, which has high school programs, and in the video, the face of the kid is blurred out, but she looks like she's as young as can be. And what this trans person is saying is he's calling on what he claims is a majority of those in the trans community, that is the silent majority, that is opposed to this radicalism, that they have got to stand up and be heard and force the media to stop pretending as if they're non-existent, to stop the Democrats from pretending as if they're non-existent. And the extreme nature of this in the context of the shooting that took place is setting the table here by the extremists on the left, that if you are a person who's opposed to a man, as in this story, dressing as a woman and giving a 14-year-old girl a lap dance in a school, it is that sort of hate that causes somebody who's transgender to go murder 6 people, including 3 children. That's what they're doing right now. If you are for protecting girls, whether it's in sports, locker rooms, or from getting lap dances from adult men, and you speak up, you are creating a world that's so hostile it gives people like the shooter no other way to have their voice heard other than to murder 6 people. That is the extreme scenario that they are laying out. Springfield's Talk 104.1, I'm Nick Reed. Sarah Myers.
Thank you. Well, spring is officially here, and maybe you're like me. You've decided, I'm going to have some people over, and I would like to do some home repairs and maintenance before I have these people over. But now you're like, I don't know who I need to call for some of these jobs. That's why I want to recommend my friends over at Beatles Property Maintenance. Now, Beatles is spelled Beadles, and they do a variety of home repairs and maintenance. I always say that. What does that mean? A variety of home repairs and maintenance. It's just easier to say that because they do so darn much. Now, we've had a lot of rain here recently, so they can help with sump pumps. They can help with water restoration if you've had leaks. And with some of those spring items, maybe you are planning some parties on that back deck, but it needs a little work. Beatles, they can help you out with those items as well. And of course, unrelated spring items, they can help you out with light fixtures, new ceiling fans, and even bathroom remodels. So they really do so much when it comes to home repairs and maintenance. Now, if you do find yourself looking for a great company for those home repairs and maintenance, Beatles Property Maintenance is the company I recommend. You can find all of their contact information housed at ksgf.com under the Sarah's Endorsements tab.
I'm going to go ahead, and it's just 60 seconds, take a 60-second break, because there is a great piece by Kylie Griswold in the Federalist. Nashville tragedy shows feeding mental illnesses and compassion. And some of it has to do with a call to action for essentially Christians, which is important. But there's a segment of this that titled A Celebration of Sickness that I think is very important. And it does need to be discussed because there is a component to this regarding the shooter being a victim that does deserve some discussion. And it's what we call uncomfortable conversation. But I want to do that, and I want to get this 60 seconds here taken care of so that I can do this before the show ends. Springfield's Talk 104.1, I'm Nick Reed. Kylie Gridwell's as a piece. We'll get it up for you under must-read headlines at ksgf.com. Nashville tragedy shows feeding mental illness isn't compassion. And we'll have it posted because it's a good piece in its entirety, though I'm only going to touch a portion of it. It talks about the politicization of this and blaming it on assault weapons. And saying, meanwhile, mental illness has proliferated. Our culture's conception of it has dangerously evolved. That's why the transgender identity of the shooter can't be fully ignored, not for those who truly care to understand the gnarly roots of this violence. Despite the protestations of LGBT apologists, gender dysphoria and trans-related narcissism are inextricable from America's broader mental health emergency. The psychological pendulum has swung woefully far. Illness that was once stigmatized, often to the unhelpful point of suppressing it, instead of encouraging the sufferers to seek help, is now celebrated and socially encouraged. If it isn't teachers brainwashing impressionable kids with sexual confusion and instructing them to keep it secret from their parents, it's actual parents catechizing their own children in fallacies. Spend just a few minutes on TikTok and you'll get a glimpse of the affected masses, self-loathing, split personalities, nonsensical pronouns and sexual identities, desperate androgyny, narcissism, bipolar outbursts, and more. Examples of encouraged mental illness abound. Even medical doctors fuel delusion by pretending sex is assigned to you and asking for patients' preferred pronouns. But here's one directly in response to the shooting. A group called the Trans Resistance Network made the shooter out to be a victim, blaming the avalanche of legislation seeking to protect minors from chemical and surgical castration and accusing conservatives of, quote, nothing less than the genocidal eradication of trans people from society. Many trans-identifying people suffer from anxiety, depression, and thoughts of suicide, the group correctly noted, but then associated the struggles not with broader mental unhealth, but with lack of acceptance of gender dysphoria from religious institutions. Note the group's promotion of mental instability, saying it is a testament to the inner strength and beauty of transgender people that despite the constant anti-trans bigotry and violence, so many of us continue to persevere, survive, even thrive. We will not be eradicated or erased. The same can't be said for the innocent lives that were snuffed out in an instant in the Nashville shooting, where derangement is considered inner strength and beauty, mental sickness thrives, and now children, not angry activists, are the ones who have been erased. And it goes on to talk about a Christian response to this, but this is an important point that does need to be noted and discussed. This, like so many other people, now, this individual is 28 years old. But we see such a tremendous focus on young people in particular because young people in those preteen to teen years have a lot of emotional angst. And increasingly in our society, we find people that suffer from anxiety, suffer from bipolar, suffer from all of these things. Instead of actually treating those mental issues, there are activists out there that recruit those people into the world of transgenderism, telling them that that is the answer. It's really interesting because we went through this period of time where kids that would be suffering from anxiety or depression, the answer was medication, medication, medication. Then we began questioning, is that really the answer or is that part of the problem? In fact, it isn't uncommon for a mass shooting to occur at the hands of a young person and then people asking, were they on medication? Because people saw medication as contributing to the problem because, number one, it did not actually get to the root of the original problem. It just masked it or it enhanced it even. The same thing is occurring, but instead of pills as the go-to answer that doesn't actually get to the root of the original problem, it's sex operations. It's gender reassignment surgeries. We are doing a horrible, horrible disservice to many of these people instead of addressing the actual source of their issues, convincing them, here's the grand answer to it all, and then once they have that devastating realization that that did not fix them, positive outcomes are not there. Glenn Beck's next. I'm Nick Reed.